Los Angeles, a city that never sleeps. But beneath the neon lights and the endless hum of traffic, something darker lurks. Bodies are turning up in strange positions, marked with cryptic symbols, each victim tied to one person, Dr. Sarah Whitmore, a brilliant psychologist, a trusted healer. But behind the calm facade lies something far more sinister. Detectives Carter and Vasquez thought they were hunting a serial killer, but what they found was a mind unlike any other manipulator, a predator, a woman who doesn't just take lives. She recreates them. Now, she's vanished. The city is her playground, and she's watching, waiting. The final lesson is about to begin, and the teacher never dies. Los Angeles never truly sleeps. The hum of distant traffic, the occasional wail of sirens, and the muffled conversations of night wanderers create a symphony of restless energy. Yet, in the pre-dawn hours, there exists a fragile moment of near silencia, breath held by the city before it exhales into chaos once more. Detective Daniel Carter stands at the edge of Griffith Park, the scent of damp earth and blood mingling in the cool night air. He takes a slow sip of coffee from the styrofoam cup in his gloved hand, though the caffeine does little to shake the chill settling deep in his bones. The scene before him is unsettling. It isn't just another murder, it's a message. A body is slumped against a weathered wooden park bench, arms extended outward in an unnatural pose, legs crossed neatly at the ankles. The victim's head tilts upward, his lifeless eyes reflecting the pale glow of the streetlights. His mouth is slightly open, as if caught mid-prayer or frozen in a silent scream. But it's the deep, deliberate carving on his chest that draws Carter's focus. The intricate symbol is unfamiliar, its lines sharp, purposeful, ritualistic. Crimson still glistens from the wound, catching the moonlight in a grotesque shimmer. "This isn't random," Carter murmurs, crouching beside the body. His voice is low, almost reverent, as if he's afraid of waking something in the night. "This is something else." The medical examiner, Dr. Roseman, kneels beside the corpse, adjusting his latex gloves with a practiced ease. His eyes, however, betray his unease. The cut is precise. No hesitation marks. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. He gestures to the victim's hands. And look at the fingertips. No defensive wounds. No signs of struggle. Carter exhales, rubbing his jaw as his mind turns. "He didn't fight back," Dr. Roseman nods, which means he was either unconscious or he knew his killer. The sound of approaching footsteps crunching against gravel makes Carter glance up. Detective Emily Vasquez, his longtime partner, strides toward him, her leather jacket pulled tight against the crisp night air. The glow from her phone illuminates her sharp features as she reads from the screen. "I ran his financials," she says, her voice clipped and businesslike. Jason Langley, 37. No debts, no criminal record, no history of violence. Works in finance, volunteers on weekends, engaged to be married. By all accounts, a good guy. Carter sighs, shifting his weight. Then why him? Vasquez shakes her head, frustration flickering in her dark eyes. That's the question. She lowers her phone, her gaze drifting to the symbol carved into Langley's chest. "What do you make of this?" Carter studies the pattern again, its sharp lines and curves taunting him. He's seen a lot in his 15 years with the department, but this is something new, something calculated. It doesn't scream gang violence or a crime of passion, it speaks of ritual, of obsession. "Something tells me," he mutters, "this won't be the last." A gust of wind rattles the treetops, and for a brief moment, the leaves whisper secrets neither detective can yet comprehend. The precinct is alive with the usual chaos phones ringing, officers typing up reports, suspects being escorted to holding cells. The smell of stale coffee and burnt toast lingers in the air. Carter and Vasquez sit across from each other, a stack of case files spread between them, their faces lined with concentration. Vasquez flips through the files, pausing to scan crime scene photos, her pen tapping anxiously against the desk. First victim, a software engineer, Henry Cobb. Second, a college professor, Margaret Fields. Third, a restaurant owner, Louis Tran. And now, Jason Langley. Different ages, different careers, different neighborhoods. No obvious connection. Carter frowns, leaning forward. What about their personal lives? Any overlap in social circles? Family? Old acquaintances? Vasquez shakes her head. Nothing so far. I checked their employment history, none of them ever worked together. No shared addresses. No evidence they ever even crossed paths. Carter rubs his temple, flipping through the photographs again. The way the bodies were positioned, the precision of the wounds, it all spoke of intent. But without a motive, the killer was a ghost. The posing, the symbols, it's not random, Carter says, more to himself than to Vasquez. He sits back in his chair, studying the images as if waiting for them to reveal their secrets. There has to be something tying them together. Vasquez sighs, tossing a pen onto the desk. We're missing something! She turns another page. Then, her eyes narrow. A name appears in all 4 files. Dr. Sarah Whitmore. Vasquez's pulse quickens. Carter, look at this. All 4 victims had the same psychologist. Carter leans over, reading the name, Dr. Sarah Whitmore, a licensed psychologist specializing in trauma recovery, highly regarded, published research, no criminal record. By all accounts, a well-respected member of the community. She's treated hundreds of patients, Carter says cautiously. It could be coincidence. Vasquez raises an eyebrow. 4 patients, all murdered within weeks of each other? That's one hell of a coincidence. Carter exhales, running a hand through his hair. No way she hasn't heard about the murders. Vasquez nods. Then let's find out what she knows. They exchange a look, both feeling the shift in the investigation. Something about this was wrong. Either Dr. Whitmore was the unluckiest psychologist in Los Angeles, or she was more connected to these killings than she was letting on. Carter grabs his coat, already moving toward the door. Let's go meet the good doctor. Vasquez follows, the weight of the case pressing down on them both. As they exit the precinct, the city outside hums with life, oblivious to the darkness lurking beneath the surface. They had a lead. But leads had a way of turning into dead ends or worse. Nightmares they couldn't wake up from. Dr. Sarah Whitmore's office was a study in meticulous control. The walls were painted in muted earth tones, the furniture modern but warm, carefully arranged to create an atmosphere of calm. A faint scent of lavender hung in the air, just subtle enough to put visitors at ease. Carter and Vasquez entered the office, following the receptionist's motion to proceed. The woman at the desk barely looked up from her paperwork before gesturing toward the door that led to the psychologist's office. Dr. Whitmore will see you now. Carter exchanged a glance with Vasquez. That was fast. She's a psychologist, Vasquez murmured. They always know when something's coming. Carter pushed open the door, stepping inside. Dr. Sarah Whitmore was striking. Late 30s, impeccably dressed, poised, and unreadable. She sat behind a polished mahogany desk, her green eyes flicking up from a notepad as the detectives entered. She exuded composure, her every movement measured and deliberate. When she stood to greet them, her handshake was firm but brief. Detectives, she greeted them, her voice smooth, even. I assume you're here about my patients. Carter took a seat, noting how the room was arranged. Everything was curated, no personal photos, no clutter. Only an extensive bookshelf filled with psychology texts and a few clinical case studies. It was sterile, precise. We appreciate you taking the time to speak with us, Vasquez said, settling into the chair across from her. She let the silence linger just long enough before continuing. You've probably heard about the murders. Dr. Whitmore nodded, her expression carefully measured. Yes, I read about them in the news. It's been horrifying, truly. She exhaled softly, her hands folding neatly in front of her. I only realized the connection when the 3rd victim was identified. It wasn't until the reports of Jason Langley's death that it became impossible to ignore. Unusual, don't you think? Carter pressed. 4 of your patients, all murdered in the span of a few weeks? A slight crease formed between her brows, the first crack in her polished exterior. It's more than unusual. It's disturbing. I've been reviewing my case files, trying to see if there was any overlap in their sessions. Anything that might explain why someone would target them. but I haven't found anything so far. Carter leaned forward slightly, resting his elbows on his knees. Tell us about them. Did they share any common traits? Dr. Whitmore's lips pressed together, and she took a slow breath before answering. They were all trauma patients. I specialize in post-traumatic stress and anxiety disorders. Some had more severe cases than others, but nothing that would indicate they were in danger. Vasquez tapped a pen against her notepad. And was there anyone you suspected? A patient who may have been unstable? Someone who expressed violent tendencies? A hesitation, brief but noticeable. Then she nodded. There was one, Ethan Cole. Carter caught the way she said his name carefully, deliberately. Tell us about him, he said. Dr. Whitmore exhaled. Ethan has been my patient for 2 years. He suffers from severe delusions and paranoid schizophrenia. He has a history of violent outbursts. We've been working through them in therapy, but she hesitated. He was obsessed with symbols, strange markings, cryptic messages he believed meant something deeper. Some of them looked eerily similar to the ones found on the victims. Carter's stomach tightened. Do you think he's capable of murder? Dr. Whitmore sighed. I don't know. He has violent tendencies, but I never thought he'd act on them. However, if you're looking for someone who fits the profile, Ethan would be my first concern. Vasquez exchanged a glance with Carter before jotting down the name. Where can we find him? Ethan Cole's apartment was a mess. Discarded food containers, torn papers, and clothes littered the floor. The walls were adorned with crude, frantic sketches, dark, unsettling images of shadowy figures and twisted faces. Some of them looked like they had been scratched into the paint with fingernails. Others were drawn hastily in black ink, resembling the symbols carved into the victims' chests. Ethan sat on his couch, his fingers twitching, his eyes darting between the detectives like a cornered animal. I didn't do it, he said suddenly, his voice brittle, as if he had been waiting for them to accuse him the moment they walked in. You have to believe me. Carter stood by the window, glancing at the chaotic state of the room. Tell us why your doctor thinks you're dangerous, Ethan. Ethan swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. Because I see things, he whispered. Things I shouldn't. Vasquez narrowed her eyes. What kind of things? His breathing hitched as he wrung his hands together. The deaths. I see them before they happen. Silence stretched between them. Carter studied Ethan's body language, the tremors in his hands, the beads of sweat forming along his brow. He looked unhinged, but was it out of fear or guilt? You see them? Vasquez pressed, her voice carefully neutral. How? Ethan's gaze darted toward his drawings. He clenched his jaw. I don't know. It's like dreams. But more than that, it's like I feel them happening. The symbols, they mean something. Carter's eyes followed Ethan's to the drawings. You drew these? Ethan nodded slowly. They come to me. Vasquez picked up one of the sketches, a crude, almost manic drawing of a man sitting on a bench, arms spread wide, head tilted to the sky. It was eerily similar to Jason Langley's crime scene. Her stomach turned. Ethan, she said carefully, where were you 3 nights ago? Ethan's breath came out shaky. Here, he said. I haven't left my apartment in days. Carter and Vasquez exchanged a glance. If that were true, then Ethan couldn't have committed the latest murder. Can anyone confirm that? Carter asked. Ethan shook his head, looking even more afraid. No one comes here. Vasquez studied him for a long moment before sighing. We're going to need to take you in for questioning. Ethan's eyes went wide with panic. I didn't do it. Carter placed a firm hand on his shoulder. Then help us prove it. As they led Ethan out, Vasquez couldn't shake the unease curling in her stomach. Something about him wasn't right. But if he wasn't the killer, then who was? The interrogation room was suffocating, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like a swarm of invisible insects. Ethan Cole sat hunched over the metal table, his hands clasped together, knuckles white. His eyes darted between Carter and Vasquez, his breath coming in short, erratic bursts. I didn't do this, Ethan said again, his voice barely above a whisper. I've told you everything I know. Carter leaned forward, his fingers steepled together. You expect us to believe that? You have detailed sketches of crime scenes before they even happen. You talk about visions, symbols, things only the killer should know. Ethan shook his head violently. I don't know how it happens. I just see them. They come to me in my sleep, in flashes. I don't control it. It's like I'm inside them, like I can feel what's happening. His voice cracked, desperation creeping in. But I swear, I have never hurt anyone. Vasquez studied him carefully, arms crossed. You see the murders before they happen? She repeated. And yet, you don't know who is doing them? Ethan's lips parted, but before he could respond, the door burst open. A uniformed officer strode in, his face pale. Detectives, he said, urgency crackling in his tone. Another body, just found in an alley off Wilshire. Same markings. Carter and Vasquez exchanged a glance. Ethan had been in custody for over 5 hours. That's impossible, Vasquez muttered. Ethan swallowed hard, his eyes welling with something between relief and horror. I told you, he whispered. It's not me. The crime scene was eerily quiet when Carter and Vasquez arrived. The alleyway was narrow, the walls flanking it covered in layers of graffiti. At the center of the chaos lay the latest victim, a young woman, her body arranged in the same ritualistic fashion as the others. Her arms were spread wide, her head tilted toward the sky, and the unmistakable symbol was carved deep into her chest. Carter crouched next to the body, his jaw tightening. She's fresh, he muttered. Whoever did this wanted to send a message. Vasquez surveyed the surrounding area. No cameras, no witnesses so far. She exhaled sharply, shaking her head. If it wasn't Ethan, then we're back to square one. Carter's mind raced. Ethan wasn't their killer. But then how did he know about the murders? How did he draw them before they happened? His gaze drifted downward, landing on something in the victim's clenched fist. Carefully, he pried her fingers open. A slip of paper, crumpled, covered in smudged ink. One phrase was scrawled in shaky handwriting. Dr. Whitmore knows. Carter's blood ran cold. The drive to Dr. Whitmore's office was silent. Both detectives lost in thought. Vasquez drummed her fingers against her knee, her jaw tight. You think she's involved? Carter exhaled through his nose. I don't know, but this is the first solid lead we have. When they arrived, the receptionist looked up from her computer, her expression neutral. Dr. Whitmore is in session, she said. Carter flashed his badge. Not anymore. They didn't wait for permission. Carter pushed through the office door, Vasquez close behind him. Dr. Whitmore was seated in her chair, but she didn't look surprised. If anything, she looked expectant. Detectives, she greeted smoothly, setting her pen down. What can I do for you? Carter dropped the slip of paper onto her desk. One of your patients is dead. This was found in her hand. Dr. Whitmore picked it up, studying the words. Her brow furrowed slightly, but the reaction was subtle, controlled. I don't know what this means. Vasquez's gaze didn't waver. Your patients are dying. Someone thinks you know why. Dr. Whitmore sighed, folding her hands in her lap. I understand how this looks, but I have nothing to hide. Then you won't mind coming down to the station, Carter said. It wasn't a question. For the first time, something flickered behind her eyes. A hesitation, a moment of calculation. Then she smiled. Of course, detective, if that's what you need. But Carter couldn't shake the feeling that they were playing right into her hands. Dr. Whitmore sat in the interrogation room, the sterile fluorescent lights casting sharp shadows on her face. She looked perfectly composed, but there was something different about her, now something Carter and Vasquez had missed before. A stillness, a precision to her movements that felt too controlled. Carter folded his arms, leaning against the table. You said you had nothing to hide. Then let's talk about your past, Doctor. She tilted her head, her lips curling into a polite smile. I've been fully cooperative, detective. But if this is an interrogation, I'd like to know if I'm being charged. Vasquez narrowed her eyes. Not yet, but we have questions. Dr. Whitmore leaned back, crossing one leg over the other. Then ask. Carter placed a thick folder onto the table, flipping it open. Sarah Whitmore, formerly Sarah Cartwright. changed your name at age 25, shortly after a brief hospitalization for acute dissociative episodes. For the first time, she blinked. That was a long time ago, she said, voice even. Vasquez pressed forward. Your patients are being murdered, doctor. And now we find a note in a victim's hand saying you know why. What aren't you telling us? Dr. Whitmore exhaled, clasping her hands together. I treat deeply troubled people. Some of them experience psychosis. I am not responsible for their actions. Carter's eyes locked onto hers. Did you ever treat Ethan Cole? She hesitated. It was barely a second, but he caught it. Yes, she admitted. Ethan was one of my more challenging cases. Did you ever manipulate him? Vasquez asked bluntly. Dr. Whitmore's smile vanished. Excuse me? Carter pressed forward. Did you ever suggest things to him? Things that might have altered his perception of reality? Her jaw clenched. You think I planted the visions in his head? That I somehow made him see these murders before they happened? She gave a soft laugh. That's absurd. But there was a flicker of something in her eyes, something dark. Vasquez leaned closer. Tell us where you were last night. Dr. Whitmore's lips parted slightly, a flicker of hesitation. Then she smiled again. Home. Alone. Carter's gut told him she was lying. The mask was slipping. The walls of the interrogation room seemed to close in as Carter and Vasquez scrutinized Dr. Whitmore's every movement. The air was thick with unspoken words, the tension between them a coiled spring waiting to snap. Carter tapped a finger against the table. Home alone, huh? Convenient. Dr. Whitmore tilted her head. Her green eyes locked onto his. Do you have evidence suggesting otherwise? Vasquez leaned forward. The problem, doctor, is that too many things don't add up. Your patients are dying, and now we've found a note linking you directly to the latest victim. Dr. Whitmore sighed, tapping a perfectly manicured fingernail against the table. I can't control what people write before they die, detective. If someone was trying to set me up, this would be a very effective way of doing it. Carter narrowed his eyes. Or maybe someone inside your head is doing it. A flicker of somethinger, amusement, crossed her face before she masked it. That's quite the accusation, detective. Vasquez slid a document across the table. Your psychiatric records, doctor? From before you became Dr. Whitmore. You were admitted under the name Sarah Cartwright. Acute schizophrenia. Dissociative identity disorder. Dr. Whitmore didn't flinch, but something in her posture stiffened. That was years ago. I was treated, recovered. Carter's voice was low, pressing. Did you recover? Or did you just bury Herbery, the part of you that wanted something darker? Silence. A muscle in her jaw twitched. Vasquez watched her closely. What happened to Sarah Cartwright? Dr. Whitmore exhaled through her nose. She's gone. Carter leaned forward. Or is she the one leaving bodies in alleys? Dr. Whitmore's expression faltered just slightly. It was only a fraction of a second, but Carter saw the slightest crack in the armor, and for the first time he knew she wasn't just connected to the murders. She was the murderer. The realization hit Carter like a freight train. Dr. Whitmore wasn't covering for a patient. She wasn't being framed. She was the one orchestrating it all. Vasquez flipped open another file. Do you know what's interesting about your victims, doctor? They weren't just random patients. They all had something in common deep-rooted trauma. Trauma that you could trigger. Dr. Whitmore's lips parted, but she didn't speak. Her fingers twitched slightly against the tabletop. Carter didn't stop. You weren't treating them. You were using them, manipulating their minds, breaking them down. He slid one of Ethan Cole's sketches in front of her. And Ethan, you planted the images in his head, didn't you? That's why he could see the murders before they happened, because you made him see them. Dr. Whitmore exhaled a soft chuckle, shaking her head. You're reaching, detective. Carter slammed a hand against the table. You're the one reaching, doctor. Reaching inside the minds of vulnerable people. You made them see things. You made them believe things. And when they were no longer useful, he gestured toward the file. You carved them up. A slow smile spread across Dr. Whitmore's face. It was eerie, cold, like the facade had finally slipped away. I've always admired the human mind, she said softly. It's so malleable, so easy to mold. And trauma? She exhaled a breath, as if savoring the word. Trauma makes the mind weak. Open. Vasquez clenched her jaw. You manipulated them into their own deaths. Dr. Whitmore's gaze flicked up, and then she laughed. A hollow, empty sound that sent chills down Carter's spine. You still don't understand, do you? She leaned forward, her voice a whisper. They weren't manipulated. They were liberated. Carter's fingers curled into fists. You're a murderer. Dr. Whitmore's smile widened. No, detective. I'm a teacher. And then, before either of them could react, she lunged. The moment Dr. Whitmore lunged, Carter's instincts kicked in. He barely had time to react as her fingers curled around the metal pen that had been left on the table. In a split second, she drove it toward his throat. Carter twisted out of the way, the sharp tip grazing the side of his neck, leaving a thin trail of blood. Vasquez leapt from her chair, reaching for her gun, but Dr. Whitmore was too fast. She pivoted, knocking over the table in a chaotic crash, sending papers flying. Her eyes, once coldly composed, were wild now, gleaming with something primal. A beast had been unleashed. Get her down, Carter barked, throwing a punch that barely clipped her shoulder. But she moved like a predator, her body weaving with an unnatural agility. For someone so poised, so put together, she fought like she had been waiting for this moment her entire life. Vasquez drew her weapon. Don't move! Dr. Whitmore froze, her chest rising and falling rapidly. Her head tilted slightly, that eerie smile returning. Her voice was smooth, disturbingly calm. Are you afraid, detective? Carter wiped the blood from his neck, his pulse pounding. Afraid? Number? He exhaled, steadying himself. I just don't like losing. With a sudden lunge, Vasquez tackled Dr. Whitmore to the ground, pinning her arms behind her back. She struggled, thrashing like a rabid animal, her breath coming out in uneven gasps. But the fight was over. The room filled with the sound of her erratic breathing as the officers outside stormed in, securing her in handcuffs. For a moment, Carter thought it was over, and then she began to laugh again, low at first, then rising in pitch a manic, uncontrollable cackle that sent a chill through the room. She turned her head slightly, just enough for her green eyes to lock onto Carter's. You think this is done? She whispered between giggles. You have no idea what you've uncovered. Vasquez tightened the cuffs around her wrists. Shut up! But Whitmore didn't shut up. She just kept laughing as they dragged her away. And Carter had the sinking feeling that she was right. The precinct buzzed with energy. Reporters swarmed outside, cameras flashing, demanding answers. The infamous doctor, Sarah Whitmore, once revered in the field of psychology, was now plastered across every news outlet as a suspected serial killer. The story had already taken on a life of its own. Inside, Carter sat at his desk, reviewing the evidence laid out before him. Every murder, every piece of the puzzle. The connection was clear now she had preyed on the weak, the damaged. She had molded their minds like clay, bending them to her will until she discarded them like broken toys. But something still didn't sit right. Vasquez dropped a fresh report onto his desk. You need to see this. Carter flipped it open, scanning the contents. It was Dr. Whitmore's psychiatric evaluation from years ago, the one they had used to tie her to her former identity. But this was different. This one was recent, ordered by the prison psychiatrist after her arrest. And it contained something terrifying. The report detailed her sessions in holding, her ramblings, the sudden shifts in personality, the way she would refer to herself in third person, the way she claimed she was two people. Vasquez exhaled. They think she has full-blown dissociative identity disorder. The other personality? It's violent. She calls it the teacher. Carter's hands tightened around the paper. So what? Are they trying to say she wasn't aware of what she was doing? Vasquez shook her head. Number. They're saying she knew exactly what she was doing, but she doesn't regret any of it. She believes Sarah Whitmore was just a shell something to protect the real her. Carter sat back, the weight of it all pressing down on him. Then who the hell is the real her? Vasquez hesitated, then flipped to the last page of the report. And there, scrawled in Dr. Whitmore's handwriting, was one final message: the teacher never dies. Carter's blood ran cold. 2 weeks later, the news had begun to fade, the media shifting its focus to newer, fresher tragedies. Dr. Sarah Whitmore had been placed in a high-security psychiatric facility awaiting trial. She was under constant watch. And yet, Carter still couldn't sleep. He sat in his darkened apartment, the words on the report echoing in his mind: the teacher never dies. His phone buzzed. A message from Vasquez. Turn on the news. Now, Carter grabbed the remote, flipping to the first news channel. His stomach dropped. Breaking news. Dr. Sarah Whitmore escapes from secure facility. Authorities warn public to stay vigilant. The screen showed security footage, grainy but clear enough. A guard, standing outside Whitmore's cell, seemingly unaware of what was happening. And then, Whitmore appeared behind him, whispering something in his ear. The guard turned, and then he unlocked the door. The footage cut to chaos alarms blaring, security chasing a shadow that had already vanished into the night. Carter's pulse hammered. She was out. She was free. And somewhere in the city, she was watching, waiting, planning. And this time, they wouldn't see her coming. Los Angeles had turned into a war zone overnight. Every street, every alley, every hidden corner had become a potential hunting ground for a woman too intelligent, too methodical to be caught twice. Carter and Vasquez sat in the precinct, their desk covered in police reports, surveillance footage, and a map with multiple red markers places she could be, places where she might strike next. We underestimated her, Vasquez muttered, rubbing her temples. She's not just dangerous. She's something else. Something worse. Carter stared at a recent crime report that had just come in an orderly at the psychiatric facility found dead, his throat slit with surgical precision. She's making a statement. Vasquez nodded. She's showing us that no one is safe. Then Carter's phone rang. An unknown number. He hesitated before answering. Silence. Thina, slow, measured breath. Detective. A voice purred. Dr. Whitmore. Carter's grip on the phone tightened. Where are you? A soft chuckle. So eager. You know, I've missed our talks. Vasquez sat up, watching Carter closely. He locked eyes with her before speaking. Come in, Whitmore. Before this gets worse. Another chuckle. Oh, Carter, it's already worse. Then the line went dead, and the real game began. The city felt different now. It was as if a storm had settled over Los Angeles, not the kind that howled with wind and rain, but the kind that made the air thick, heavy with the promise of something inevitable. Doctor, Sarah Whitmore was out there, somewhere, moving like a ghost through the streets. Carter knew she wasn't hiding. She was hunting. The precinct was a hive of frenzied activity. Detectives pored over surveillance footage, officers organized patrols, and the chief barked orders to coordinate the manhunt. But Carter and Vasquez sat still, their eyes locked on the crime board, on the faces of the victims, on the chilling message Whitmore had left behind. The teacher never dies, Vasquez murmured, her finger tracing over the note found in Whitmore's cell. She's not just running. She's playing with us. Carter rubbed his temples. She's always been 3 steps ahead. She'll make a move soon. She wants us to chase her. Vasquez's phone buzzed. Another unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Silence. Then Whitmore's voice smooth as silk. You're both so predictable. Vasquez clenched her jaw. Where are you? A soft chuckle. Do you really think I'd make it that easy? No, detective. I'm just calling to let you know that I've already started. Vasquez's heart pounded. Started what? Another laugh. The final lesson. The line went dead. And then Carter's phone rang. A call from dispatch. A new crime scene. Dr. Whitmore had struck again. The body lay sprawled across a conference table inside a high-rise downtown. Blood pooled around the polished wood, thick and glistening under the soft office lighting. The victim was a man in his mid-40s, his face frozen in an expression of terror, his arms spread wide as if in surrender. But the most chilling detail was carved into his chest, another symbol, deeper and more violent than the previous ones. Vasquez swallowed hard. She's escalating. Carter stepped closer, his stomach tightening as he scanned the scene. She's making this personal. This isn't just a message. This is a demonstration. A folded piece of paper sat neatly beside the body. Carter picked it up and unfolded it with careful fingers. Dear detectives, it's been a pleasure watching you struggle, but you're still missing the point. You see, I never made these people do anything they didn't already want to do. I merely opened their minds to the truth that pain is the greatest teacher. And now, you're going to learn that lesson too. Shall we raise the stakes? I think it's time. See you soon. The teacher? Vasquez exhaled sharply. She's taunting us. Carter folded the note and tucked it into his pocket. Number she's challenging us. The radios crackled. All units. Be advised, another body found. Same markings. Carter's pulse hammered. She's not done. The second body was found in a hotel room overlooking the city. Another victim, another carefully staged scene. The patterns were identical except for one chilling detail. This time, the victim was an officer. Vasquez took a shaky breath. She's targeting us now. Carter nodded, his jaw clenched. We have to end this, now. Then, his phone rang again. A blocked number. He answered, his voice sharp. Whitmore. Her voice was a whisper, soft but dripping with amusement. You're so close, detective. But are you willing to do what it takes to stop me? Carter's grip on the phone tightened. We're going to find you. Oh, I know, she purred. That's what makes it fun. A pause. Then, she said something that sent a chill straight through him. I'll be seeing you soon. The line went dead. And then Carter's phone pinged. A text message. An address. Carter and Vasquez locked eyes. No hesitation. They moved. The address led them to an abandoned building on the outskirts of the city. The air was thick with dust, the silence pressing in on them as they moved through the darkened corridors, weapons drawn. Then, a sound. Soft. Rhythmic. Laughter. Carter and Vasquez exchanged a look before stepping into the main room. And there she was. Dr. Sarah Whitmore sat in an old chair, legs crossed, smiling up at them as if they were old friends. Detectives, she greeted. Right on time. Carter leveled his gun at her. It's over. She tilted her head. Is it? Then she lifted her hands. They were covered in blood. Vasquez's stomach twisted. Who? A door creaked open behind them. Carter spun, his breath catching in his throat. A hostage. Tied to a chair, gagged, eyes wide with terror. A final piece to her game. Whitmore's voice was soft, taunting. Your choice, detectives. Save them, or take me down. Carter's finger hovered over the trigger, his mind racing. Vasquez whispered, We can't let her go. Whitmore's smile widened. Then let's see if you're willing to pay the price. The seconds stretched into eternity. Carter made his choice. A shot rang out. Then another. When the dust settled, Whitmore lay on the ground, blood pooling beneath her. But she was smiling, even as her breath shuddered. She coughed, laughing softly. Well played. Then she went still. Vasquez released a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. Is she? Carter didn't answer. He only stepped forward, staring down at the body. And then, Whitmore's lips curled slightly, barely a whisper escaping her mouth before she lost consciousness. The teacher never dies. Weeks later, the city had begun to settle. The killings had stopped. The news had moved on. But Carter couldn't shake the unease in his gut. He sat at his desk, staring at the last case file of Dr. Sarah Whitmore. Her body had been taken to a secure facility. No official confirmation of death had been released. Then, a knock on his door. A courier. An envelope. He opened it, his breath catching as he read the single phrase typed onto the paper inside. You learned well, detective. Carter's pulse thundered in his ears. Somewhere out there. She was still watching. And the game was far from over.